The opinions of this podcast are my own and not necessarily the opinions of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate, any realtor associations, persons, or entities. If your property is currently listed with a real estate broker, please note that it is not our intention to solicit the offerings of other real estate brokers.
All right, we are back on Hunting Home, and today's guest is Meggan Jensen with Benchmark Mortgage. Been wanting to have Meggan on the podcast for quite some time and finally got the opportunity. We have spent the last, 8 or 9 months in the leadership program.
Mm-hmm.
So we have graduation this week and thought it'd be an excellent time to have you on the podcast and just talk about everything going on right now, what you know about mortgage and any insights you have. So why don't you kind of tell us who you are and your background and how you ended up here with Benchmark?
All right. No pressure. All the things mortgage, huh?
Yeah.
I know. Super excited about CV leadership and graduating this week. It's been a very fun program, a great group of people that we've had together. So it's been a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm Meggan Jensen, like Blake said, with Berkshire. Or not Berkshire, you're with Berkshire.
Good thing.
Benchmark. I'm with Benchmark Mortgage and have been with them for about 18 months now. Been in the mortgage industry for about 20 some years. I won't say exact. It's been a minute, but enjoying Benchmark, the new family that I have there, and always enjoy helping homeowners be able to purchase a new home, their first home or forever home or an investment property, whatever it is. So enjoy being able to talk to people and helping them with one of their largest investments or helping them build like an investment portfolio. So
yeah. And I've seen you, I've seen you at Starbucks meeting people. I can tell that you're like passionate about getting educating people and like pointing them in the right direction. And I know when we've talked recently that your mission right now is educating the public and making sure that they're making the right choices, because sometimes the things that they're seeing in the media are not always correct. So like, what's some things that you're seeing right now and you feel like people are getting the wrong impression, especially about mortgage?
Well, obviously the interest rates is always, a big trigger for a lot of people. Just with some of the statistics that we're seeing as far as people being in the most credit card debt that they have been, pre-COVID and stuff, but, everybody's really holding on to that 2 or 3%. And so it's just really trying to educate people and, working with the numbers and kind of sitting down and figuring out their long-term investment plan. As well as, immediate as far as families, their cash flow every month and everything like that as well. So just kind of looking at the overall picture, the home mortgage being one part of it, but then, investments and or debts and how all of that is working for or potentially against some people. And so, rates might not be at the 2 or 3%. Might not even see those ever again. Maybe 4 or 5. It's really hard to say exactly what rates will potentially come down to and exactly when, based on all of the reports and everything. We would have potentially seen that happen by now, but inflation and unemployment and there's several other factors that go into what happens in the bond market that impacts mortgage rates and everything like that. So not to dive down that rabbit hole, but it's just mainly being able to look at the numbers and, granted inventory is very low at this point in time and mortgage rates are a little bit higher. Biggest thing that we're really struggling with right now too, with first time home buyers is affordability and just being able to get them into a home that they're able to afford and educating people and helping them make good financial decisions.
Yeah. So, I know that, like you spoke on with like household debt consolidation, that seems to really be a big topic right now and one where people are they can shift some things around and actually save money on a month-to-month basis, and they don't realize it. And I mean, it's things. The education part to me is as simple as like some people don't realize that when you sell your house, if you have equity, that's your money to do whatever you want to do with. And I feel
Right.
like a lot of people just think, oh, I have to take this money and I'm going to get taxed if I don't, if it's your primary residence, and people make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a huge part. But what would you say? I get the people that are on the fence. They're capable maybe of buying, but they're really trying to be savvy. They think they're gonna time the market. But I always tell them, and maybe you can comment to this. We're still in this position of if rates do go down, you're gonna have more people come to the market, and you're gonna have prices go up. We're still in that same boat, and so I don't know. Are you telling your clients the same thing?
Yes, I am. And there's a program that we use that kind of it shows the cost of waiting, basically. A lot of people, I have a lot of the same conversations and stuff too, or after somebody's pre-approved, they're like, oh, well, we don't. Well, that's a little bit higher than where we want to be and stuff like that. And so the biggest thing is for people to also sometimes understand is that this mortgage is not for the entire 30 years that you're owning the home. Or a lot of times this is like your first home. The average American moves anywhere from, every 7 to 8 years, depending on their financial situation, their home situation. If they get married, if they have more kids, they outgrow the home. Sometimes, we're also seeing that parents are moving in with kids as they're, kind of aging in place and not necessarily going to a home. So things do change. And so that's why it's very important for people to sit down and just kind of go through, hey, what does this look like for the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years? So that way we're kind of able to look at everybody's goals. And, for every 0.5% to 1% that rates are going down, there's potentially 1 million more people that are entering the market because they're trying to time the market. There's biggest advice that I can give to anybody at this point in time today is if you feel comfortable with the payment that you're making or can make on purchasing a new home, buy the home today. You can always refinance at some point in time down the road, whatever rates may potentially come down and when it makes financial sense. But if you're okay in making a payment of $1,500 to $1,600 a month versus paying somebody else's mortgage and renting from someone, invest in yourself, because that money, you're building equity for you. Your home is going to continue to appreciate, and everybody's worried that we're going to be in an 08, 09 situation. And just really don't see that happening because, after 08, 09, we had the Dodd-Frank Act and all of that. And we had lenders tightening up and making sure that, us as lenders were not, and banks and everybody putting people in very not so good, financial positions, and really making sure and kind of cracking down on people being able to afford a home.
Yeah.
And so, and my whole thing is with everybody, I can tell you in black and white all day long what you qualify for, but I don't pay your bills. I don't live your lifestyle. I don't want you to eat ramen noodles and tuna fish. But at the same time, like let's look at the whole picture as far as, what owning a home looks like for you. And everybody's different. I mean, everybody's very different when it comes to, what they feel comfortable with or what they want to, what kind of home they want to be in. That obviously
Yep.
dealing with people and what they're looking for and stuff too. So
Yeah, I think, to that point, dealing with people, one thing, especially with first time home buyers, well, almost exclusively with first time home buyers, is they they have an expectation for what they're looking for. And sometimes their budget doesn't always meet their expectation. And they have a hard time understanding where other people are coming up with this down payment money, how can they afford this? And it's usually a situation where those other people have lived in a house for 2,
mhm.
3, 4, 5 years, and they've gained 40, 50, $60,000 in equity over that time period. And so one thing that
Yeah.
I'm trying to preach with some of my clients is like, if it's your first home, obviously it needs to check most of your boxes because you're making a big purchase. It needs to be what you're looking for and, meet your needs, but you can't expect to have this perfect home on a first time home buyer's budget. And the whole goal is to get you into a house, start paying that mortgage balance down, and
Right.
let the market build some equity so that your next step, you can check more of those boxes. And that's a really hard, sometimes kind of a hard pill to swallow for some people. But I'm like, man, if you can get into this house and it's a very, very similar situation of a house that you're renting and you're paying the same mortgage and you're paying yourself to do it,
Hmm.
why wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and I think, I mean, it's probably a conversation for another time, but I think that, as a society, we want everything now,
Yeah.
and so everybody's like, oh, I really want to do this. But at the same time, being first time home buyers, I've been in 3 or 4 houses myself. And every time I buy a house, I'm like, I wish I would have done this or whatever. But being a first time home buyer and buying our first, buying my first home and stuff like that, there's so many programs that are available through the Iowa Finance Authority. There's money that's out there to be able to help people with some down payment assistance. There's some programs through the city and the county and everything like that. And there's a lot of assistance that is available for first time home buyers to be able to help them, with the down payment. And to be able to, help towards closing costs and prepaids and whatnot. Um, the Iowa Finance Authority is one of the, first time home buyer programs that I work with a lot, and they have some different options as far as, with a lot of them, it's based on income and credit and stuff. They're also Iowa, we're really good to our veterans. We're waiting for that money to get replenished here, hopefully at the beginning of the new fiscal year and stuff like that. So I definitely would agree with you 100%, Blake, is that, depending on the homes that you're looking at, you're not going to probably check every single box, but majority of them you probably can, being a first time home buyer and stuff. But just to be able to start building that equity so that you can get to, where you want to be. I mean, a lot of people that I have as first time home buyers are coming back and they're like, hey, we want to keep this house as an investment.
Yeah.
How can we make that work? And looking at the next step up, because, a lot of times there's been promotions or they've had a career change or there's, they've outgrown the home. And I mean, real estate at the end of the day is still a really good investment.
Mm-hmm. Could you speak to IFA a little bit and just talk about those grants and what that looks like and how someone might be able to apply that?
Absolutely. So Iowa Finance Authority, they are what they call a bond program through the state of Iowa. So we have to adhere to their purchase guidelines and their income guidelines, and they do have those, out on the on their website, which is iowafinance.gov, I believe. I have it saved as a
Google
favorite.
it.
So yeah. But so for first time home buyers or if you're a repeat home buyer, there's a $2,500 grant that's available for first time home buyers only, not if you're a repeat. And then there is what they call basically a second mortgage. It's at zero. The interest rate is at 0%, and you can borrow up to 5% of the purchase price to be able to use towards the down payment and or closing costs. So that has helped. I've worked with a few people. I've been a preferred lender with them for quite a few years and work with several people that are first time home buyers that may have a little bit of money and stuff, but they're like, we don't want to really deplete our savings. And in order to feel comfortable kind of buying a home, we've used that first time home buyer program to be able to help towards the down payment and closing costs and all of that. And they've been able to keep some of their cash so they can maybe make some of the tweaks to the home that they wanted to, that they aren't getting in buying this particular home or saving for appliances or whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's a great program through the state of Iowa, and have put hundreds of people through that program.
Yeah. So, kind of question for you. Have you seen, I know for me personally, both being a listing agent and on the buy side, that, there are some couple years in there where if you were working with somebody with, I'm just thinking IFA, but then I'm thinking FHA and VA, if you had one of those two types of loans, it was tough to get something bought. Um,
Hmm.
are you seeing a little more workability in this market in the last 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten quite a few, at least 6 VA loans accepted here within the last few months, which is great to see. It's a great program for our veterans who have served, our country and or are currently serving. So happy to see that. We have had some more people that have accepted, the FHA offers and stuff like that. And, with some of the changes that have been made with Fannie and Freddie with the conventional loan program, even though people are able to qualify for a conventional loan, they've kind of gone the FHA route just because of monthly savings.
Yeah.
An FHA loan has become a little bit better of an option, I guess, for lack of better words, than a conventional, depending on some of the loan level price adjustments that they have done. So, people that have had really great credit, and that's something, that I had kind of taken for granted initially once the loan level price adjustments had come out. If somebody, has a 720 credit score, I'm like, oh, definitely conventional. But had a long talk with a gentleman, a young man who was looking at purchasing his first home. And so, we went over, I'm like, this is the FHA option for you. And he's like, well, that's a little bit lower. And he's like, that makes a little bit more sense. So he was able to buy a little bit more of a home using the FHA option than he would have with conventional because he was okay with the monthly payment. So
Yeah.
it was, about an $80 difference per month. And that's a lot,
Yeah,
especially in today's market and environment and
for
such. So
sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I've seen some more negotiation. Well, for sure, I've seen more negotiation in the last 2 or 3 months, but probably the last 6 months, um, which is good. I think on both sides of things, it seems like everyone's getting a little more of what they want. Sellers are still getting
mhm,
great money and still getting really strong offers. It's just not the craziness that we experienced and having, 5, 8, 10 offers on one property in a
right.
matter of a couple days. But, I'm seeing home inspections come back. I'm seeing, some your FHA and VA loans starting to come through, and also sellers being more prepared when they go on the market to have those things in line so that if
Hmm.
they're willing to accept those types of offers. And so yeah, I think it's a good change, and it goes back to what you were saying before, is that in this market, if you're ready to buy and you can afford, it's a good time to get in now, because you probably will have some negotiation room, either on
Yeah,
the price or on the terms or whatever it may be, where you're going to end up paying more for it in the future, maybe at a lower rate, but your monthly payment might be end up being very close, and you may not be able to get an inspection and the terms you want, and it could be
right.
a totally different deal.
Yeah, I would agree. Are you guys still seeing a lot of cash?
Um, no, not in the Omaha market, 2021, 2022, even into early 23, I saw, even at the 250 to $350,000 price range, I had several people that were getting beat by cash offers, which always surprised
Hmm.
me. But I felt like that was the honestly like a first time home buyer's price point, at 250,000. And I think that a
Yeah.
lot of young people had parents that were able to, either pull some equity, get a line of credit on their current house, whatever it may
Hmm.
be, to buy something and then turn around and finance themselves out.
Right.
I don't know very many 30-year-old people that have $250,000 in cash that they can, just step up and write, that offer.
If
Um,
there are, we need to get a different circle, Blake,
yeah, no kidding.
and figure out what they're doing.
Yeah. And then I always told people, my clients wouldn't understand that. And I'm like, listen, this is not what it sounds like. A person that's got $250,000 that they can dispose of to buy a
Hmm.
house, they're not going to buy a $250,000 house, most likely.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen as much. I did see a statistic though the other day, like on a nationwide basis, that like it was high. It was almost like 30 or 40% of transactions were cash.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think, that does take into account, that takes
Mm-hmm.
into account investment properties, commercial properties, and then what does cash truly mean? Um,
Right.
so yeah, I haven't seen as much of that lately. But I've definitely seen some, with my clients when I'm writing offers. Um, I haven't, had to be as aggressive, I feel like. And I think that my clients' expectations are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they have a little more room to negotiate and they're not as in big of a hurry. But at
Right.
the same time, at certain price points, I've had people lose out on two or three because it
Mm-hmm.
took two or three for them to fully understand, what I was trying to tell them in the first place, that it just
Mm-hmm.
depends on the house. If you like the house and you're really motivated by it, chances are someone else is too. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just getting them in the right position, the right frame of mind,
Right.
sometimes takes a loss before they get to that
Mm-hmm.
point. Um,
Yeah,
but that's all part of it.
it is. It is for
And
sure.
and working with a loan officer that's going to educate them on what they're doing instead of just like, you know, here's how much you can afford, here's your budget,
Yeah.
and here's your rate, and I'll see you later. Let me know when you
Right.
get something figured out. It's like sitting down, having a conversation. Let's look at the full
Mm-hmm.
picture. What are your options? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just that is a must today. So,
Yes.
I mean,
And we used to do that. I mean, again, I've been in it for a hot minute, but we would sit down and with technology, I love technology. Actually, I really don't love technology. I'm not very good at technology, but I mean, we have all of this technology at our fingertips and everybody wants to do everything, searching online, your rockets or whatever. And, in 2021, even, part of 22, it was everybody was kind of drinking from the fire hose, and it was just who could get to you the fastest, who could get you a pre-approval the fastest, because you guys are, you know, they're looking at a house and there's multiple offers and they need to get it in and everything like that. And now that the market has, obviously slowed down a little bit, it's about having those better conversations and really educating. And we were at the down at Glenwood at a school career fair type thing. Not that anybody grows up and wants to be a mortgage banker or a real estate agent per se, but we're down there with all of the other people, and we just kind of did a credit, like a credit, the high school kids understanding what a credit report was, or what a credit card is, or do you understand the difference between a debit and a credit and stuff like that. And I was really surprised, like, by a lot of them that just didn't really have any idea, like,
yeah,
exactly what some of that stuff was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, we need to be educating more. Like, they're our future, and they're going to be future homeowners and stuff like that. Granted, although at high school I probably wasn't looking at buying my first house by any means, but it's just being able to educate people as far as how they can make their money work. And there's so many things that are out there in the media, like negativity sells, doom and gloom sells, not, hey, you still can buy a house at
yeah,
7%, and this is how it happens. So yeah.
yeah. So you have a son that just recently graduated, right?
Yep.
Is he well versed in credit and all things home ownership?
I don't know about that. He's heard me talk about it since obviously he was born, and so it's funny because I took him out to the Berkshire golf outing with me, and he was able to talk really intelligently with some of the agents and stuff like that out there. And I was like, I'm not going to send you to college. I'm just going to have you come work with me.
Yeah.
Um, so he does. He understands it. He went and met with a financial advisor here about a week and a half ago. I'm like, you're taking some of the money that you received at graduation, and we're going to invest that. And I'm like, you're driving this ship. And he asked some really great questions. And so I was really surprised. I was like, oh, have been paying attention.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah, and and he's kind of learning some budgeting because now that he's graduated, I'm like, hey, he's got 2 jobs, so he's doing good so far. I'm like, you should probably start thinking about saving for, you know, owning a home or figuring out what
Yeah,
you want to do. But
that's good. That's
I don't think
good.
he's quite ready for that responsibility yet.
He's got time.
Yeah, he definitely does. But
Um,
I wish I would have known some of the things that I know now at that age, and
yeah.
because I didn't buy my first home until I was 31.
Well,
And I'm
even
like,
like even investing some money, it's like,
mhm,
man, that compounding interest thing.
yeah,
If you can invest a little bit of money at, 18, 19 years old, that's a big difference than
absolutely.
starting when you're
Hmm.
30.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So,
So,
one thing that I thought would be interesting to get your opinion on because, I'm biased, obviously, and hear a lot from other real estate agents. And I feel like most people are pretty well aware because what they see well, I wouldn't say well aware because what they see in the news, but they're aware of the current lawsuit taking in place with
mhm,
buyers agents, with the National Association of Realtors. um, I feel like people are not really being led correctly, to what's actually going on. And then I don't really think people understand the long term effect of some things that could change.
mhm.
So, what would your message be, to a buyer to have some representation, on the real estate side of things, or what's your opinion of what's going on?
I the mortgage industry, we went through something somewhat similar, just a little bit more transparency, obviously, to the consumer. And it's all about the consumer at the end of the day, and legislation making it that way, and all of their worldly wisdom. Sometimes I'm like, I think you've kind of made it a little more complicated than it needs to be, and not necessarily always protecting the consumer. That's a topic for a different day, Blake. But anyway, basically, I mean, I there's definitely the value in what you guys as real estate agents do. I mean, there's so much behind the scenes. It's more than what everybody says is just opening a door. There's so much more that happens behind the scenes that people are unaware of. And anytime that I'm ever talking to a buyer, that we, are working with another agent, I try to loop the agent in so we're all on the same page, and we know, hey, this is, what we're looking at, like, and stuff like that. And the representation, I think, is huge, just because this is our careers, our full-time jobs. I wouldn't try and go and fill my own scripts as a pharmacist. I wouldn't go and try to go out to WebMD and diagnose myself. Not that we're performing any of those type of things, but we're the professionals and stuff here, as far as, and when you guys definitely are too, to know the ins and outs, the laws that are protecting them, the laws that are not, of things, all the T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted. And so I definitely have always, pushed for my buyers to use agents and to be well representative, especially, unfortunately, in the society that we're in today. Half of the paperwork that we have is because somebody's done something that wasn't on the up and up. And everybody can always polish a turd, I guess, for lack of better words, when they're selling a home, and
Yeah.
cover up a bunch of problems that you don't know. And owning a home, you can't call the landlord and be like, hey, this is not working. It's you, and those repairs can be very costly.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely understand where a seller's mind is going to be when, and I always tell people, like, when I'm filling out a cost sheet, go to a listing appointment, filling out a cost sheet, they see that big commission number there. And I always tell them, that is split several different ways.
Hmm.
And I explain why and what that is. And I've always done that before any of this ever started.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see a seller's, you know, point of view when they're looking at it and they're like, man, I'm giving up a lot of money, that could be in my pocket. And that's kind of especially when things were agents, things are selling in 24 hours, and people thought, well,
Yeah.
I could just put a sign out in my yard and I can do all this. But
Hmm.
there's so many different scenarios, and things are changing on a daily basis that
Hmm.
if you're not in it, even if you are a licensed agent, same with a loan officer, if you're not in it and like actively working, it's really hard to
Right.
keep up.
Hmm.
And so I think that there's a lot of agents that it'll be very detrimental to them because they're not going to understand how to explain their value. And I could see a lot of people leaving the business because of that.
Yeah.
But it's just transparency. And I think if you're working with people that you have relationships with anyway, people are going to see that value. And um,
Absolutely.
I think it's going to get maybe a little bit worse before it gets
Hmm.
better. But I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I think we're gonna probably eliminate those people that have a full-time job and doing onesies, twosies, or three, or just are not really serious about being an agent
Yeah.
because of, again, everything's changing on a daily basis, and and being able to give your value as an agent and stuff. So, and you do a great job of that. You provide a lot of value, and what you provide, your services that you provide, and you're very transparent. I mean, anytime that you and I have ever worked together with some buyers and stuff. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I think we're gonna probably see some people leaving, as well as there's been several loan officers that have left the industry too, because pretty much before you just picked up the phone and, hey, we're going to do a mortgage with you. Now you have to be able to add value,
Yeah. Yep.
especially with all of the online lenders that there are
Yeah. I
that
mean, and that,
advertise rates that are really not there.
yeah. And that, like you said before, talking about, like Rocket Mortgage and people just going to those places. I mean, I think that there is a huge demographic of people that's just the world that we live in today that it's so uncomfortable for them to pick up the phone and call a real person.
Hmm.
And so I think, you're doing a really good job right now with your social media. I think it's easy to get to know you through your social media, and you give off a very non confrontational vibe. Like it's pretty easy to call you and talk about mortgage and maybe see if you can help them without being like,
Yeah.
you know, just tearing them apart and hounding them about what they need to do. And I think that's really the message that I'm trying to push too is like, hey, we can have a conversation about real estate,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to bug you about it. I'm not going to chase you around town, trying to
Yeah.
make you buy a house or sell your house.
Yeah, no. I think, that's exactly that. I mean, I'm not gonna sit and hound you about buying a home. I just want you to be able to have all of the
Yeah.
information so you can make an informed and educated, decision. And the more information, more education people have, I think people feel more comfortable, and then they're better prepared
Yeah.
versus like, well, I didn't know that this is gonna happen, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on today. I think that was a great conversation, and we'll have you back on here in the future. Maybe some things will change and have new things to talk about. But
Definitely.
otherwise, we will see you on Wednesday at graduation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun.